For our final tech learning project of literacy in the digital age, we were supposed to find and come up with a story that is based on a metaphor that we select for ourselves as a learner or a teacher. Well, in light of this and relation to it, I figured I would look for metaphors that relate to history. And while I was researching on the internet, I found a website, understandingsociety.blogspot.com, and it brought me to a spot that has a couple different metaphors that you can base history off of. The first is related to history being like a river, in the sense that the river has a direction of flow in which in which it creates streams and other pathways that allow for the current to roll through. The problem with this metaphor is that it suggests that history has an inevitable course of direction, such as a river would, which is profoundly untrue. History can be changed every day. Every day we change history by what we do or what we don't do. So although there are some good points to how history can be related to a river in a metaphorical sense, overall, it's not a very good metaphor. The next one I found relates to the idea of history being a tree. It shows this idea that there are branches in history, a point where developments could have gone left or right, and the next phase of history are dependent on the specific branches that have been taken before. America, for example, could have invested in canals rather than railroads, and its transportation history and subsequent urbanization would have been significantly different. The analogy isn't exactly between the history and the tree, but instead it is between the space of hypothetical historical possibilities and the branches of a tree. Actual history is one specific pathway through this tree of possibilities. And finally, trees have systems of roots, which are the structures under the ground and out of the sight that explain the nutrition and the growth of the tree. So basically it's saying there that history has roots as well. There are causes that lead to events throughout our history that could be seen as the roots for the event. One of these would be the roots of the Cold War and how it is rooted out from tensions that rose between Russia and the Soviet Union and the United States following World War II. These rising tensions could be seen as the roots that make the tree. Now, I like this metaphor because it does a good job of capturing the contingency of history. It highlights that the actual course of history is simply the aggregate result of the branches or choices taken previously. One of the obvious difficulties with the tree metaphor, however, is the extreme uncertainty that exists about the branches. There is a hypothetical alternative outcome that might have put a given society on a different trajectory. So basically what this metaphor shows is that for any real historical outcome that could have came from these branches and how they lead to different areas, there's also a falsehood of a potential historical outcome that might have come if it branched in a different direction. So it is a good metaphor to show how history happened. And I wouldn't call it an issue, but you could make an argument for is that other branches leading in different directions could create alternative history, which might have ensued, and you could actually even make a diagram if you wanted to show the different alternative histories that could come from, let's say, if somebody else won, let's say if Al Gore won the 2000 presidential election, how would the United States be different? Just looking at different historical events where branches could have happened in different aspects breeding different results. And it's always interesting to ponder about alternative history, these counterfactual possibilities that could have happened. But all in all, looking at history as a tree with different branches culminating from different events and the roots causing those events is a rather good metaphor for understanding history.